All right, thanks, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Let's all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted and major public media has been notified. NOACA conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. If any member feels the need to abstain from any vote due to a conflict of interest, he or she should state their intention to abstain when the matter is introduced by the chair for presentation for the record. Subsequently, that member shall not participate in any discussion of the matter for which a conflict exists. According to Robert's rules, absence from a meeting does not require a member to abstain from voting on the minutes. If the member still wishes to abstain, he or she should state their intention for the record. For the benefit of our guests from the public and the recording of this meeting, please be sure to speak into a microphone. The microphones can be turned on and off using the gray button on top of them, and they are on when the light is blue. Thank you. I'd like to move to approve the minutes. So moved. Is there a second? Second, John. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? A motion is approved. Public comments today. I don't know if anyone has signed in for public comments. So there are no public comments. So we will move on to the next section of the agenda. Our next section on the agenda is Executive Director's Report. Grace?
I have no specific executive director's report. I know you wanted me to talk about the meeting that you and Kyle and I had yesterday. I don't know if this is the appropriate time for that or if it's later on the agenda.
I'll leave that up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. You want to just move on to the next section of the agenda and then we can talk about it when we get the presentation?
I think that's good.
Sounds good. All right, thank you. Action items. There are no action items for today's meeting. And then now we're moving on to presentations, discussion. First item is charter development. Grace?
So we included a draft charter in your packet. And I'm going to ask Liz Barlick to help me with this item. So we followed the standard format for charters that encompass the other committees, subcommittees, and charters. So that includes the purpose, the goals, the functions, the membership, reporting relationship, meetings, agenda and minutes, and staffing.
So at your first meeting, we had some blanks for the goals and functions. I filled those in based on your discussion. There were 3 specific items I know that County Executive Ronayne wanted to accomplish. I put those under functions. So really this is just for your review, discussion about any edits. Everything else is kind of standard, but the purpose, the goals, the functions are really what we're looking for some confirmation on or any edits. So
Liz and I even went back to the minutes and looked at the minutes to ensure that these lined up with the minutes.
yeah, and the goals actually came from our internal strategic plan. Suzanne with OE Strategies wasn't able to join us for this meeting. She will be at the next meeting. But the goals were pulled from the goals in that document.
Is there any comment on the functions or the goals?
So on the functions, the last bullet, it says develop performance process for the executive director. Is that the wording we want, or do we want performance evaluation process?
We talked about that, and the reason we put just the performance process is because it was setting the goals as well as the evaluation.
Got it.
And so we thought performance process sort of encompassed more of what the subcommittee was doing. That too, yeah,
I'm okay with any of those. I was just asking.
that was
It-
why.
It read
Yep.
short to me, so.
I think performance management process.
Okay.
Appropriate.
We'll add the word management in there.
I'm sorry, what was the edit?
So it's going to be develop performance management process for the executive director. So fourth bullet will add the word management after performance and before process. If there are no other comments, any other comments? Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. You all can take action on this now if you want, or we can make it an action item for the next time for you all to formally adopt.
Normally, we have the committees, subcommittees, and councils adopt the charter. So that way it becomes a formal item. So we didn't put it on the action item because we weren't sure how many comments we would get. So if we're ready, we can move forward. If not, we can.
Sorry, I had one question.
Sure.
A little bit of a slow read today. For the membership, it says each member's term shall be 1 year. Is there a limit on how many years consecutively?
Every year, the board reseats all board members, committees, and councils. So this would just be along that same line. But there's no limit on how many years you can keep serving on it. Yeah, could be infinity.
I was like, do we want that? I didn't mean that to be. I was gonna say, here's the limit. Thanks.
I noticed you had no reaction when I said that.
No,
Any other questions?
I mean, I don't have an objection to moving forward and I'm just approving the charter amendment
Great.
at this meeting. Unless anyone has any thoughts before we do that? Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the Richard, is there a second? Second by John. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? The item has passed. Thank you, Grace. Next, recruitment and retention.
So at the last meeting, we discussed how NOACA undergoes its HR processes related to recruitment and retention. You asked us all to sort of give you an example of how somebody is recruited and what the process looks like. And so Lindy Burt, who is our Director of Administrative Services, will give us the presentation on recruitment and retention as she currently oversees the human resources function.
Thank you, Grace. Good afternoon. Just wanted to present to you again on the topics of, we'll go through recruitment first, and then follow that up with retention activities. So in our recruitment process, obviously, this is kicked off due to a vacancy that's created or an operational need, either in a program expansion, change in programs. That essentially initiates the hiring process. That probably goes without saying. And then under our process, we do have there would be a form that would be filled out by appropriate director and staff. We have both a personnel requisition form or a authorization to post the position that's signed by the division director and by Grace, by our budget director, by myself. And then once we get to the point where we are actually making an offer to a candidate, we again have another form that is executed, signed by the director and the executive director to formally hire the employee or the candidate. With regard to our recruitment methods, we currently post all our positions on the NOACA website. I'll have a screenshot of that for you in a moment. We have a jobs page managed by our public affairs division. So we then also post the position with appropriate trade and professional associations, such as Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, National APA Ohio, Cleveland Engineering Society. There are a number of them that where we would put them up for again, depending on the job duties. We also work with colleges and universities, especially Cleveland State and the Levin College, to post a position on their website if they offer that, or in some cases, they're also willing to send it out by email to distribution lists that they maintain. And then we also attend special events that offer recruitment potential. For example, I'm attending there's an Association of Civil Engineers is having a Young Professionals event this Friday and Saturday in Cleveland, so I'll be sitting at a table there. We've attended a hiring event by the Cleveland Engineering School. So again, we try to make use of those opportunities as well. And then all of our application process, we do use a web-based app called Breezy HR. I know there are others out there. We've actually also been looking into ADP. I think, I don't know if any of your organizations, but the Metro Parks I've seen uses the ADP module. So that's something that we've been looking into taking advantage of. And that application is really helpful in that maybe I'll show you that's more helpful. So again, this is a snapshot of NOACA's homepage. It shows you that we've got the jobs link, the jobs page link both at the top of the page. And then if you hit the About NOACA, it appears again under the Contact Us. And then this is just a simple screenshot of the jobs page on our website where you see just gives a simple introduction, and then each position for which we're currently hiring, hyperlinked right there. When an applicant or a candidate clicks on one of those links, it actually then takes them, it redirects them to the Breezy HR app. And for example, this is our manager of environmental planning position, and this is how it would appear to the candidate. I didn't take a screenshot of the entire page, but there's the entire job description is written below, and then the candidate simply applies, hits the Apply to Position button. They would upload their resume and answer a few simple questions. And that then puts the application into that app where I'm able to manage, to go through resumes. I then would forward resumes to the person who's hiring within our agency. You're easily able to move the person to feedback. There's a feedback section, then there's an interviewing section, there's an offer section, and then a hired section. So this is really helpful in from an organizational standpoint. With regard to recruitment, we also engage in internships. We currently have an intern, Allison Bunce, who's doing water quality work in our strategic and environmental planning division. We had a summer intern last year, Lauren Halprin, working in our programming division. And then we also have another internship posted, another position for a strategic and long-range planning intern in the strategic and environmental planning division. We've also applied to special programs in the area, such as the Summer on the Cuyahoga and the Cleveland Foundation Fellowship Program. With regard to the recruitment process and the interviewing, we typically do two, sometimes three interview structure. The first interview is always virtual and it's more generic in nature. We ask a candidate the same type of questions no matter what the position is. That is just to give us an initial understanding of their skills, but to really get to know them more in terms of the candidate as a professional and as a person. We then, if they advance to the next phase, we would invite them back for a second interview, which was much more technical in nature. And for managers and director level positions, those candidates would also meet with Grace as the executive director. Sitting in on interviews is usually myself from the HR standpoint, or our HR consultant if need be, and then always a director or manager in the division. And then with regard to the screening process, once we get to the point where we are actually negotiating with the candidate, we do a check of 3 professional references, and then we use a company called Sterling for a background check, background and education confirmation check. With regard to market trends, I'm just observing, I've been here 2.5 years, that in urban planning, we are pretty successful in getting candidates. We are in communications and marketing, pretty successful again in getting people to apply. I'm seeing more that in the transportation planning, traffic engineering, environmental planning, technical fields, that it's just harder to connect with candidates and get people to apply. I've talked to just anecdotally a few of our engineering firms that we work with, asking what their experience has been. I'm hearing that they are experiencing the same situation, especially in traffic engineering, transportation engineering. And then I'm also finding level of experience. Maybe this is common, but the higher level the position, the more experience required, the more challenging it is to get candidates applying for those jobs. Maybe I'll pause there. I can keep going on retention, or if you want me to pause and ask any questions, I can.
Keep going.
Keep going. All right. With regard to retention, when we do hire somebody, the first part of the process in terms of getting them acclimated to the agency is just a general onboarding. So there is an agency orientation that occurs. We have an orientation manual. I meet with the employee one-on-one and go through that manual, and that's just more on general day-to-day life at NOACA, procedures at NOACA. We've done those in group settings as well. If we brought on a lot of employees at the same time, we've done a group meeting as well. And then there will also be an onboarding process, an orientation process in the division itself. So that would be specific to the work of the division. That would be specific to the position's job duties, and that's conducted by the director and the manager. Each employee in the agency has what's called an individual work plan that guides their work for the upcoming year, calendar year or fiscal year. So that would be presented to the employee and reviewed with the employee as well. We also conduct agency-wide trainings throughout the course of the year. So that is sunshine laws, Ohio ethics law, harassment prevention training. We will be doing a CPR first aid training that's coming. We're doing an active shooter training with a deputy from the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department in April. And so those topics, those will come around periodically, and we'll do those repeatedly every 1 to 2 years, depending on the nature of the training. We also have in our HR handbook professional development tracks. So that will help a person or an employee with their advancement. That section of the handbook describes various job-related activities that the employee can take advantage of, or activities that can help with job advancement, and then, of course, activities that can be undertaken for managerial and leadership training. Other examples of professional development activities that we engage in, I mentioned this, I know, in a previous presentation to this group, but we do have a training budget for every employee in the agency. And then we're also able to support additional technical trainings as needed for the employee. That would come through the supervisor and the director. Every year, we also send 1 to 3 people to CSU's Leadership Academy. That's an annual program that meets monthly. We have one of our managers going through that program right now. In the past, we've had 2 to 3 employees going through that. We budget for it on an annual basis. We also encourage attendance of employees at professional conferences, not only attendance, but presentation at the conference or submittal of reports. And in addition, we do have a promotion procedure at NOACA that we follow. That's available to employees at the end of the fiscal year during the performance evaluation. If an employee meets the minimum requirements of a position, the next level and performance requirements, they would be eligible for review for a promotion. We also feel like our benefit programs help with retention. As you're probably aware, we offer comprehensive health insurance. Our employees, I think, are in the OPER system. We see that as a selling point. We offer employees participation in a deferred comp program. We have a voluntary life insurance program. We offer FSA accounts, and then, of course, an employee assistance program as well. We also provide reimbursement for professional association dues. So if you're a member of the APA, for example, you can get reimbursement for those annual dues. We also offer support for an employee who is interested in obtaining their professional certification or licensure. In addition, there is availability, if budgeted, for tuition reimbursement for college. And then we also offer a transit pass subsidy that's 50% on the transit pass of the local system, and then a fitness center subsidy, which is up to $300 per year. And we also have a longevity pay program. We also count in our retention efforts the internal strategic plan, which I know that you've heard about. And then then the compensation study that was completed in the fall. We think that these are two critical actions that are helping the agency to walk the walk when it comes to its investment in its employees. That concludes my presentation, so I would welcome your questions.
Thank you, Lindy. Very good presentation.
Any questions from the group? Lindy, obviously this is a very, comprehensive employee life cycle. We didn't get to kind of the performance management piece and some of the outcomes that, can happen with that. But from your perspective, from, I guess, HR, just overview of the entire organization, is there something that you see is missing, or maybe there needs to be more focus on?
I do see how the recruitment process is very labor intensive, so especially when we've got 7 positions posted like we do right now. So I wish there were more time to think outside the box with regard to recruitment efforts. And I'm, so that is one area that I feel could use support for sure.
Lindy, that was really good. Super helpful. Thank you. So the compensation study, have we been able to implement any of that? Like, have folks gotten pay adjustments?
Yes.
Okay, so that's in place.
Mhm.
Great. Okay. And then the individual work plans, is that the basis for performance management, or how does that connect to performance? And
Sure,
tell us like what actually happens for performance management?
So performance evaluation kicks off right after the end of the fiscal year. So that's, June 30th is the end of our fiscal year. So we begin that process July 1st. Every employee has, again, the individual work plan. So that portion goes into their, that's the first part of the performance evaluation form. And then the second part are professional competencies on which all employees are evaluated. So items like, taking initiative, teamwork. There are 6 professional or competencies that are the second part of that performance evaluation process. So every employee they do their self-evaluation, and then the supervisor completes their part. They go through this. There's 2 columns, so one for the employee and then one for the supervisor. And once that's done, it's reviewed by the director, and it's also reviewed by HR, and there is a calibration process that takes place as well. We came together this year with Clemens Nelson consultant, and they showed us the data on the performance evaluations, and that's again that's our ability, that's our effort towards making that process as standardized as possible. So.
Lindsay, I know in recruitment, you said you work a lot with CSU. Is there other colleges outside the area that we reach out to? And I'm just wondering a lot of those positions in engineering that are hard to fill, there are probably less people going into those fields. Do we reach out to an engineering college?
We do. I am finding that it's a little challenging with the colleges because so that is really good for those entry-level positions because that's who they're most in touch with. So the colleges are very helpful from that respect. Most of them use I think the Handshake app. There are a couple apps that they use for job posting. So we'll put postings on those apps. But again, it's the higher, like the more experienced positions when people have been out of college for a number of years is connecting with those candidates.
And I don't, maybe I had this a question for the board. Do we want to look at their current HR manual?
I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Okay, so you could provide that.
Yeah, I can send that out. And this manual has been in place since 2012 or so. Just about the time I came on board was about the time it was adopted, and it has had many updates since then, but they're all identified. So I'll get that out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Got a couple of piggyback questions. Just speaking of the HR manual, as far as recruitment, thinking about talent that maybe is in Ohio, but also recruiting folks that are not in Ohio. A lot of times we have to be able to go outside of the state in order to get people in specialized positions. Do we have relocation clauses in the HR processes?
We do, although it is very, it's not a substantial amount.
Okay. That's something I would suggest that we look into when appropriate, right? You don't want to just paying for all kind of stuff, but it does help sometimes. And I have noticed that with agencies that don't have robust or at least open-mindedness toward that, you can lose out on significant candidate pools. I had a couple more, but you look like
I was just going to say, once they get here, they're not going to want to leave.
there you go. That's it. Got to get them in the door. Another couple things that I wanted to mention, just to piggyback on Kyle's question about the compensation study. And excuse my ignorance if I'm not as up to speed on where we are with that. So I hear that we paid people out. That's great. Was there an additional equity analysis that was done on top of the compensation study? And then also who did the compensation study? What agency?
Clemens Nelson did it. They're out of Columbus. And they've done similar studies for other MPOs as well. So we were, glad to have them on board. And when you say equity, do you mean market or do you mean parity?
So yeah, it would be parity and also compression, just offering this, just coming from off of doing this about a year ago to the date. I found that it was helpful when you have the compression or the compensation study that handles the market value and, kind of your job descriptions and all of that. But then there's also the added layer, I call it the isms, where you get the racism, sexism, ageism, whatever other ism can be there. Sometimes a way to not always eradicate, but to lessen that impact is to also look at the disparity of, I didn't get the position because I'm a woman. I didn't get the position because I'm African American. I didn't get the position because whatever it is, too old or too young. That's also a service that a lot of the compensation organizations offer, but I find that it has to be requested by the agency. It's not always just offered outright with the packaging. So that's something that we may want to consider the next go round because it adds another layer of protection, I think, to the review process. I can say for RTA, we actually had our legal counsel review that final finding as an added benefit to our HR division from the third party. And we let our team know this is going to take an additional 6 months beyond the regular compensation. So you're going to get paid out or adjusted as necessary through the comp process. But then 6 months later, I'm given I'm botching the time. But as an example, we're going to come back to you and let you know if there were any additional issues that were identified that need to be adjusted because of protected class. So that might be something. And then one other question is, how often are we going to have the compensation study? That's another thing for good practice.
I think the recommendation was every 3 years to revisit.
Agree.
Yep.
Lindy, with the compensation study, did did you find that the positions fell into the, appropriate, pay levels or bands based on the outside data that you received?
I recall that, yeah, the results showed that we were doing pretty well, but we did make some adjustments across the board. So,
And those adjustments were
Yep.
made
yes,
already?
they were.
Okay.
So do you do exit interviews when employees decide to leave? And if so, how is that data sort of evaluated and looked at for, posting a new position, bringing somebody else on? Just curious how robust that process is.
So we do conduct exit interviews. It's voluntary, and each employee is invited to conduct an exit interview.
Do they typically do it then or not? Or who knows?
Probably 50-50.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, one additional, this was a question. I believe you mentioned that the director, assuming that's you, Grace, correct? Reviews all evaluations. Did I hear that right? Or how does it?
Division director.
Division director.
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes up through all levels of, yeah.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
They are made available to me, although I don't review each one of them.
Okay. That makes sense to me. Just didn't want to make sure I heard that right. Thanks.
And one other thing. We're a new organization, subcommittee, and we're doing a lot of baseline things right now. It's great. We've got the compensation study done, strategic plan. These are all great things. We're going to look at that HR manual that is probably pretty antique, maybe from what it is, what it is today. But yes, you haven't been here that long. But my question is about longevity here at NOACA. How many years for an average is the longevity? Just to get a baseline today, we got 7 positions open. Where are we at today? So then we can look at this and as we go through this in the next year.
The
back
average
and go
tenure of an
forward.
employee. I don't know that we have that number calculated, but I can tell you we've got employees all the way to one end where I've got 2 of them that are celebrating 40 years very soon. And then I've got, I think 2 of them that just celebrated 1 year. So we've got them all over the place and then anywhere in between. But for the purposes of this subcommittee, we'll calculate that for you.
And I would add what your turnover, ratio is, your annual turnover percentage. So that as well. Any other questions for Lindy? Lindy, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Next on the agenda, the HR position. Grace, you want to talk a little bit about that as well as some of the other items that we discussed in our meeting that we had previously before this particular meeting?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak on the meeting that Mayor Costelli, the chair of this subcommittee, along with Vice Chair Kyle Dreyfus-Wells. It was an excellent meeting in terms of being able to share information with me, and then I was able to deliver some information to them about our current process. So we had the discussion that focused on 2 areas. First was the performance evaluation process. So Kyle had shared with me her performance goal setting process, and I was asked to develop 10 goals, which I have done. And so at this point, the next step is to review them with my board president and then bring it back to the subcommittee and or the executive committee, or probably both. So at this point, I feel very confident that the 10 goal areas or the 10 goals reach across the agency and are not just projects that have to be completed, but really transcend to encompass the leadership of the agency in various areas. So again, we just looked at this yesterday. Should I send it out to everybody?
Sure.
Yeah, I can send that out to everybody with the packet of information and appreciate some feedback on that. So that was one area that we worked on yesterday. And the other area was the HR position. So initially, when I was looking at a position, we were looking at an HR generalist. After some thinking and some reviewing job descriptions and reviewing senior staff input that I requested, we have looked towards a director level position. And so that the position then would be a peer to the senior staff. We reviewed a job description from one of the local agencies that is similar in nature to NOACA. I will then subsequently be collecting job descriptions from my fellow MPOs who do have HR directors. And I will be looking at that, or those. I have collected information from senior staff. I will be incorporating, we reviewed that yesterday as well, and it looked like the requirements requested by senior staff very much met a standard job description. And so we think that that will be very well received by senior staff when we finally complete this. So we will get the information from the MPOs, take the existing job description I have, any others that you would like to forward to me, and then I will synthesize that information along with the senior staff info and put together a job description for your review.
Any questions for Grace?
Just a quick question on, so first, that sounds great. That I think an HR director position makes a lot of sense, considering the importance of what you got going on for NOACA. Is there a finance implication that you might not be aware yet as you're kind of creating the job description? Do we have to adjust, or do you have to adjust any finances to be able to kind of account for the jump in responsibility?
There will be, I mean, at this point, we don't have severe budgetary issues. So there is flexibility within the existing budget to move funds around or move positions around in order to be able to support a director level position. We had already budgeted for a generalist, so really it's the incremental cost, and we will make that amendment.
Any other questions or comments for Grace? Thank you. And yes, I think we had a very productive meeting. I feel that the pace at which we are moving forward to address some of the items that came up in our first meeting, I'm very happy with that pace, and we're just going to continue to move along, and hopefully by our next meeting, we'll be able to share a finalized job description for the HR director, as well as hopefully finalize the goals for the executive. Thank you. Next, no further reports. There is no old business. There's no new business unless anyone has anything. If not, that's what we have for our meeting today. Our next regular meeting is going to be Friday, March 11th at 2:30. Does that work for
Tuesday?
I'm sorry. This says Friday.
Oh, Tuesday. We have Friday on the brain.
Yeah. So Tuesday, March 11th. That was to see if I was paying
It's force of
attention.
habit.
And that's all we have today. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
But just a
Opposed?
question. I think you did say OES Strategies is going to be at the next meeting, right? To make a
Yeah,
presentation.
great point. So OE Strategies, you requested that OE Strategies come and make a presentation in more detail about the internal strategic plan, the ISP, and the board surveys. And so we will be bringing that. We'd hope to bring it to you today, but unfortunately, the lead on that project is on vacation in Patagonia somewhere, hiking right now. So she will tell us all about her trip when she gets back.
Great.
And
Could she present that too?
yes,
Yeah.
and but she will be at the next meeting and make a full presentation.
And before everybody leaves today, I do have the org chart, if anybody would like to take that with them. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I took one, I'll pass it along We'll get it around the room. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda.
Yeah, I'll copy you on everything the rest of this meeting.
I know, isn't it great?